بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم داود halkan nagala socotaa martii YouTube kulana على 74 بوست taariikhda maanta oo kala tagay bishii 2022 warka caalamka u dhawaanaya nahayna gaar ahaan xiisadda Ukraine iyo Russia oo cirkiisu sharafay laakiin maanta waxa qabajiyay oo biyo ku bilbilay madaxweynaha dowladda Faransiiska Macron markuu labada dhinacba telefoon kula hadlay madaxweynaha Putin iyo madaxweynaha dowladda Mareykanka madaxweynaha Biden wuxuuna labada dhinac ka codsaday in shir degdeg ah isku yimaado waddanka Faransiiska gaar ahaan caasimadiisa Paris wayna aqbalay labada dhinacba aqbalada Biden ayaa waxa warar dambe ka soo saaray aqalka cad waxayna dhaheen madaxweynaha Biden shirka kama qayb gali doono ilaa madaxweynaha Ruushka ballan qaado inuu soo weerin doonin Ukraine daawada halkan nagala socotaa martii YouTube kulana على 24 بوست saraakiil sare oo hadashay dowladda Mareykanka oo kuwaas oo sirdoonka Mareykanka ayaa cadeeyay in uu Ruushku isku daaranayo in Ukraine qabsado laakiin waxa beeniyay Moscow arrinkaas wasiirka gaashaandhigga Mareykanka Hostin oo saxaafadda maanta u warramay ayaa sheegay haddii Ruushku uu weeraro Ukraine ay ka dhalan doonto arrin aan weli la arag ana ka dhicin weli bariga Yurub iyo adduunkaba waxay malaayiin qaxooti ayaa ka soo qaxin doona Ukraine iyo wadamada dariska la ah waxayna ku soo jabin doonaan Yurub iyo caalamkaba arrinkaas waxaan ka digaynaa in madaxweyne Putin uu wax dagaal ku qaadin si ay xaaladdu meel xun u gaarin Mr. Hostin oo hadalkiisii wata ayaa ka digay in Ruushku uu isku daaranayo inuu farangeli military ku qaado Kiev iyo dalka Ukraine dhammaantiis daawada halkan nagala socotaa martii YouTube ku leenahay على 24 بوست khabiir sare oo hadla
and President Rushka were located this weekend together observing the exercise. So he has deployed two forces down here in Crimea, which
General James Isbaya ayaa maanta toole uga sharaxaya qaabka Ukraine geesiheeda ugu soo fariistay
Ukraine surrounded on three
sides.
That's what has everybody incredibly concerned as legitimately.
And it's about the movement, where are the troops going? So what is the new satellite imagery that we've seen?
Brianna, let me show you one of the pieces of imagery that just came in. This is a tank location, but also you see tanks as well as support vehicles, which would be refuelers, armored personnel carriers for infantrymen. And clearly what the Russians use is they use their infantrymen and then tanks to support that, which is different from how the United States uses it, where we want to exploit with our armor, our tanks, and then the infantry are then used appropriately to do some really precise work. So what you see with this image is this is an indication of a very large, probably I would say a battalion or maybe a company within a battalion, which means there are other forces that are outside the range of this piece of imagery that are in direct positions ready to attack. Again, what we don't know, I mean, beyond that, that's intimidating, but what we don't, that's a capability. What we don't know is whether the rule is, or the mission is to go or to continue to hold what we have.
The towns that we're seeing in these new images are very close to the border. We're talking 21 miles away. How significant is that?
Well, it's very significant because the forces that are in place have an effective range so that they could begin military operations, for example, rockets and artillery, as well as armored vehicles. They can begin operations on Russian soil before they get into Ukraine. The effective range is such as they can start right now and they can achieve objectives on the ground with the positioning not in Ukraine, and that works to Putin's advantage, right? He can hover over Ukraine. He is in his own territory. He has every right to do what he wants to do in Russia, irrespective, in his view, irrespective of what the world is saying right now. But clearly, it is incredibly threatening to Ukraine and its independence.
In all of those troop positions to the north, they're all red, right? These aren't permanent troop positions because they're not in Russia. They're in Belarus, as you mentioned, Putin and Lukashenko there surveying the troops. We've learned, we've learned that these exercises that were slated to end yesterday are now going to continue indefinitely, according to Belarus's defense minister. What does that mean?
Well, again, if you try to get into the head of Putin, what he has now is a permanent presence in Belarus. These are Russian forces that are not routinely deployed there. But in his mind, he sees this as analogous to NATO, U.S. forces, other NATO partners positioning their forces in Poland, for example. We have a core headquarters, a U.S. core forward deployed headquarters in Poland. We have exercises routinely in Romania, We have exercises routinely in Hungary, training exercises. Putin is conducting operations in Belarus, and he sees this as his right to do. And I would suggest that we may not see permanent bases in Belarus, but you're going to see routine exercises between the Belarusian forces and the Russian forces going forward.
Let's listen to something that Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday.
Would we see tanks rolling into Kyiv?
Well, you could see that. I mean, that's highly likely. You could see that. You could see a significant amount of combat power move very quickly down to take Kyiv.
Highly likely. We're talking, the way he describes it, of kind of World War II style images. What did you make of that?
Well, again, let's look at the map. Forces are in Belarus, Kyiv here, capital of Ukraine. The travel distance is not significant. They have a significant amount of forces here. They have a capability to invade Kyiv. If they wanted to invade Kyiv, they would need, and then hold Kyiv and then try to replace Zelensky. My estimate is that they would need entirely more forces than what you're seeing up here. I doubt Belarus would send forces across, but they could. That would be significant. But the Russian forces have the capability, and Secretary Austin is absolutely spot on. The capability exists to do significant damage to Kyiv. But as we've discussed before, if you want to take Kyiv, you're probably going to end up rubbling a large percentage of Kyiv. And I think what's more likely is something in this area with a potential expansion there, because that allows Putin to achieve an objective that the world might look at as we looked at Crimea 8 years ago, which was, okay, it's a big deal until it wasn't, right? So he is increasing